Hey, my name's ShawNshawN. I do art on ShawNshawN.co and specials on eBay. Today we're going to review Anna. So Anna's this film by Luc Besson. He's famous for The Fifth Element. So he's normally kind of, this French director that does a lot of kind of goofy sci-fi films. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. He did one about monster machines, or I can't think of the name. It was a really goofy movie, but really fun. It kind of bombed at the box office. It was a little bit too goofy, I guess, for the audience. This one's more kind of a straight spy, nothing goofy, just really straightforward. It is French, so French kind of have kind of this circular mentality where it kind of goes in and out and in and out and in and out. And you get that feel here, which works really well in the spy type of story. So it stars Sasha Luce as Anna. Helen Mirren is Olga, the KGB one of the bosses. Luke Evans is Alec Chechenskov, who gets her into the KGB. Lara Bova, Maud, who is her lover when she becomes a model. And Celia Murphy is Lenny Miller, who is the CIA boss. So the story kicks off when there is 9 different US CIA agents. I think my cat's trying to sneak in or my door is opening. So there was 9 CIA agents. They're just executed in Russia, so you're like, oh, this is kind of an interesting start. And then they flip forward to Anna, who's this girl, she's sent to do this killing, and then you're like, who's this girl about, right? And then they flip back to the past when she was dating this kind of local mafia. He's not a boss, but he's just one of the local rising mafia members. He's picked her off the street. She used to be a prostitute. She was just, making ends meet. Interesting enough, her dad was a lieutenant in the Navy, so she drops out, and you're like, why do you drop out? And apparently her parents died in this horrible car accident, so it just kind of just blew her mind. So she ended up being a prostitute for a while, and then she's with this criminal element, and then, the guy makes some really stupid mistakes, steals a car, from this businessman, and then tries to do a ATM jack, steal all his money. Then it gets into a police chase, runs away, and then gets caught. Well, they didn't get caught. They actually make it back to their apartment, but the cars are wrecked. There's evidence all over the Russia streets. It's only a matter of time before the police find them, right? When they get back, the guy's kind of packing up, and Anna's just in shock, like, what the hell do I do? And then this guy kicks the door, but he's basically part of the KGB. And he's like, hey, I'm here to give you a second chance. And she's like, okay, I don't want to be in there forever. And she's like, well, it's only 5 years, right? 5 years and you're out. And he's like, oh, that sounds okay. I can do that. So she does 3 years of training. And then she has 2 years working as an operative, right? So they immediately put her on the street, have her shoot up this local mafia boss. And they kind of trick her by not loading the gun. So she's like, psh, psh. She's like, oh shit. And then all the people, it's a complete chaos, right? So, and then she gets back to the boss, the KGB boss. She's like, Olga, and she's like, what the hell do you do that for? That's crazy. And she's like, let me tell you something. You know why I walk with a limp? They dropped me in Siberia. And I was wandering around trying to avoid wolves and bears. And then she put her foot into a bear trap. And she was walking around with 3 days with the bear trap, and she finally got back, and then, her leg was all jacked up, of course. So that's kind of how she learned how to be a KGB officer. Brutal Russian school of hard knocks. And so Anna's like, so she gets in, she's trained, she does her first, hit job, and then she's like, all right. And then she's doing it for 2 years, and then she's like, hey, how much longer is this? I want to make sure I want to get out of this. And the real senior boss is like, what are you talking about? And he's like, do you promise me only 5 years? To her, this guy that got her in, and then the boss just pulls a gun right to her face and is like, this is the only way out of the KGB. And she's like,
oh, sorry, sir. Yeah, that's no problem.
And then, of course, she's like, oh, dude, this sucks. This is worse than the criminal guy, right? So she's sent to infiltrate French model agency, and then that's her cover, basically, in France. And she's really good looking, right? And so she does hit jobs in between where she can fit them in, and she falls in love with... Well, doesn't fall in love, but she's gets a girlfriend, Maud. And Maud is thinking like, hey, we'll get out of this agency. Once we make some money, then we'll get our own apartment. And then once we make enough money, we can move to the islands or something and, kick back there. And, she's like, well, that's a pretty good plan, but I'm stuck in the KGB. So she knows that's not a solution either. So she's like, oh, that's a nowhere path, right? So she's kind of like whatever. She's not in La La Land, but for her it is because she can't get out of the KGB. The KGB will hunt her down worldwide, so there's no real option there. So she's just like whatever, not really listening to her plan. And down the line, at one of the jobs, she gets caught by the CIA. The same guy that led this squad that got killed in years earlier, and this guy's looking for total vengeance. So he's like, "Hey, we got to take a hit out on the top KGB guy." And she's like, "How long do I have to do this for? You know, I don't want you can just kill me right now." She's like, she's fed up with all these spy people, like whatever. He says, well, it's only 2 years. She gets it down to a year, and then he wants a house in Hawaii, and she's like, all right, that sounds kind of cool. And so you're thinking maybe she's going down that route, right? And so that's kind of where the story goes. I'm not going to give away the punchline, but it's pretty good. It just, every layer just unwinds. So, you know, there's a great scene when she first is in the KGB. One of her first operations is selling mamushka dolls, which is these little Russian dolls you open, and then you open side, and there's all these dolls inside of one inside another. And this is, you know, very symbolic of Anna's personality as she goes from all these different roles through the film. And also, oh, is this who Anna is? Is this who Anna is? Anna's becoming someone else. Who is her real personality all the way down to the deep side? No one really knows, right? Not even Anna. She's kind of discovering that on her own. Another really cool thing is, you know, she's plays chess as a girl, and her dad was an avid chess player, so she's really good at chess. If you don't know, in Russia, I don't know about nowadays, but definitely under the USSR at this time frame it's shot, all school kids are raised in chess. So all kids know how to do strategy, and if you don't know, chess is like, it's a two-sided game, one-on-one, and it's deep strategy. There's no luck involved in the game at all. It's completely your wits against another. It's basically the first player, white, has a slight advantage, but after like 10 moves, as long as black reacts, it's basically even, and then it's anyone's game at that point. So in 4 or 5 moves, you can really have a drastic difference in opinion. If they're really evenly matched players, they'll kind of tussle back and forth, and there'll be sacrifices of different pieces, and then you'll get ground here and weak over here, and then have to protect over there. And so it's really a playoff between strategy, trying to, you know, force down your opponent to the ultimate thing where you win, but at the same time you have to be protecting your king, right? So it's this trade-off of attacking the other king slowly, like pressing all the points, and at the same time, you know, protecting your own king. And this is symbolic of how Anna is getting approached as far as, you know, join the KGB, going to be out 5 years. No, you're not going to be out. We're going to kill you if you leave. And the CIA, hey, are they going to promise the same? I don't know. And so Anna's kind of whittling before, is this a good strategy? Well, this isn't going to work with the KGB. I have to get out somehow. The model agency, yeah, I can make money in modeling, but the KGB hunt her down, that's not an option. And then the CIA presents this third option, right? So she has these 3 different options on the table, and she's kind of brainstorming, you know, how to get around this. You know, it gets down to a really nice finish, I would say, in the film, as far as she really plays it cleverly down to the last piece, which is exactly how you play chess. Is you can have a really strong game, and then this other player is playing weak, and then all of a sudden the last night he just sneaks in, BAM! And that's kind of how the film works out. So it's really nice in the essence of how one person goes from a challenge to a challenge, grows as a person, is also becomes more, you know, this hardened KGB killer, how she becomes, you know, all the techniques of the KGB to betray the KGB itself, you know, and how she grows from a little girl to this hardcore kind of KGB officer. So it has a really nice play there, I'd say. Some of the hit jobs could have been a little more interesting. They were kind of boring at some point. She would just go in and shoot them up, and it was just really repetitive, which I think probably is the nuts and bolts of kind of how the KGB might work. It's just a really simple, just kill them. Probably, you know, they probably would have done more poisoning, more, you know, subtle deaths for the person. They wouldn't necessarily be all shot. They'd probably be more subtly killed, so it wouldn't be as obvious. But again, if you want to kill someone, you kill someone. You just have to make sure you cover your tracks, right? And eventually, you know, she's killed so many people that she's leaving little clues here and there unknowingly, which is why the CIA are able to figure out that it's one person behind this, they're KGB, and then it's this one person, and they hold, you know, their purse a certain way, so they're kind of like, and so she knows that route's really, she's getting really encircled on the chessboard, so to say, and then she finds her way around that. So it has a really nice story overall. Really fun. I think they get to a lot of the real spycraft versus kind of, you know, their crazy Mission Impossible, which is total bullshit. So this is really gets to the real nuts and bolts of spycraft, which is much more interesting in a way versus, say, a Mission Impossible where it's just this impossible stunts that just unrealistic. It's really a fun style movie, but you know it's totally bullshit, right? Pure escapism. While this is kind of really cut and dry. Luc Besson doing really a, logical, with not overly special effects. It's really kind of cool, I would say, in that aspect. Cold War thing. I grew up with the Cold War, so it's really kind of fun. And I think nowadays with the Cold War tension with Russia, with Putin, it's kind of, getting back into that Cold War, U.S. versus Russia kind of feel. And now it's kind of U.S. Russia versus China, so it has kind of a different play there, so it's really fun. I would rate this as a good movie to see. And if you want to subscribe, you can subscribe below. Also rate me a thumbs up. And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks, guys.